Okay. Mark is here.
Where'd you get these? Oh, just back kitchen. Okay. And he's like the top left. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about listing presentation. Very exciting stuff. Let's see. Who's this? I didn't think about this, you guys, but I need to scan this in and send this to the people that are on. So. Okay, for those of you that are on, it's Sonia and I think Mandisa. I don't know. I just emailed you guys everything. So first and foremost, I put this together for you guys so you could see what my listing presentation looks like and what I included in it. And then we'll kind of talk about the whole process. So I always used a binder, okay? And I'd always put a picture of their house on the front. Usually I would just use like Google Maps if I needed to, if I didn't have a picture. Sometimes if it's close to my house, I would go shoot a picture. But they kind of see that you're taking interest in their house. Then inside, I usually would put some marketing material here of things that are going to be used on paper, you know, like flyers or whatever that might be. I just pulled this off the internet. I put a thank you card in here, and I put a couple business cards in here. And then here's the listing presentation. And then back here, I put in the tips for filling out your adverse material facts. And then I put the adverse material facts and the listing presentation in here. I mean, the listing agreement. And in the listing agreement, I would typically fill it out the best of my ability. Now, something to bring to your attention with this particular situation when you bring a listing agreement is one of the reasons I would bring it is because I wanted to put that 6% in there, right? Which you can still do, just be really cautious with all these antitrust lawsuits that you don't say words like standard fee or this is what everyone charges, or we have to pay the buyer broker 3%. Like, don't say those types of things anymore, because those are the things that are going to get us in trouble. Okay, so I'll just pass this around so you guys can look at it.
So what do you say instead?
I just say it's my fee.
Okay.
Just that's what I charge, basically. That way, it's not a standard. I mean, it's not a like industry standard. It's my standard. Okay, so we'll talk about what actually goes into the listing presentation and the presentation itself, but let's just talk about from the moment you get a phone call from somebody who wants to list their home. I used to carry paper, but then I started using my iPad, and on my iPad I had a PDF that I would grab, and I could just, with my pen, I would just fill it out when I'm talking to them on the phone with any details that I need. Okay, so the reason why it's so important though to get the details that, I should have printed this and I didn't, but there's a sheet that I have and it asks lots of questions about the house. And one of the main questions that you want to ask on the phone is, what do you think your house is worth? What do you think your house will sell for? You want to ask them that question because you want to know what you're walking into, right? You want to know if they think their house is worth what you think it's worth, or if they're like La La Land or whatever. And that will help you, because the worst thing that can happen is they think their house is worth $50,000 more than what it is worth. And then you walk in with your market analysis showing 50,000 less, and then they get really.
You didn't know that.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you get, and they kind of look at you like, oh, I'm not gonna hire this person. So it doesn't mean that your market analysis, you're gonna raise your market analysis.
Yeah.
It's just how you're gonna handle yourself in having those conversations with them. Okay, so what I can do, I don't think this is even on Simply Back Agent, but I'll put it on there, is the sheet that I use when people call me. I don't even know where it is, to be honest with you, but I've got it somewhere. And I'll put that on under the seller section in Simply Back Agent. And I highly recommend using it because it will help prepare you for your appointment. The next thing is, I typically will want to get that appointment scheduled at that time. And then when I do go to the appointment, I'm going to have my listing presentation. And there's people out there who believe that you're better off leaving marketing material, and then there's the thought of some people that feel like, just do it digitally and don't leave all your good stuff there. I personally always like something because I like the shelf value of it. There's information in there that is will be very helpful for them, and even if they don't hire you, they're still going to have your book and it's going to be in front of them, and your name is on it, right? And I would definitely put on, and this is in Simply Back Agent, and I can also share it with you through Canva so you can edit it. And I would put, your name or your branding on every page. Right now it says Simply Real Estate on every page, but I would have your name on every page. And people will steal your listing presentation, but honestly, they're all the same. Really, they're not that different. Everybody gets the same information about what goes in a listing presentation. But I do like it when other people come to do a listing presentation if my book's there, The other thing is, I always like to get in first. I don't like to be the last one in. I want to be the one that kind of dazzles them and shows them all. So then when other people come, they're going to go, well, they didn't do that. They didn't do that. They didn't talk about that. They didn't, all these different things.
Bars unsaid.
What was that?
Bars unsaid.
Yeah, exactly. So I always feel it, you should go first in everything. That's just how I've always been. Like in school, I'll go first. Nobody else wanted to go. I'm like, I'm gonna go first because there's no bar, right? I mean, there's no bar. Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, so then when I get to the appointment, I usually have my folder, and then or my iPad. At the end there, I started using an iPad more than paper. Even when I was there, I would write notes that way. But I would have something to take notes. And a lot of times the notes that I'm taking, I know I won't even use them, but I'm trying to show them that I am interested in what they're saying. So I'd have something. So I would go up to the door, never park in the driveway. I've done that before. That can backfire because then they're like, somebody has to come or go, and then your car's blocking them in or something like that. So I always park in the street. And then when I go in, I always say to them, this is the way I do things. I'm a little bit hot.
It is a little warm.
It is a little warm in here. This weather is weird. So I always go in there and I want to sit at a table. I do not want to sit at a couch, right? Because one thing that has happened to me is I've had like a husband and wife, and one's on one side and one's like over here, and I'm trying to like give a listing presentation, and I've got like a coffee table, and it just is really awkward. So I always say, is there a table I can set my stuff down? And for the girls, never put your purse on somebody's table. Nobody wants your nasty purse and bottom of your purse on their table. And then set down the listing presentation or whatever you bring, but except for whatever you're gonna write on. Then tell them, could you please walk me around the house? I'm gonna take some notes. Sometimes, depending upon the client, I might ask them to walk around the house myself without them with me. I don't usually do that, but it just depends upon the client. If I feel that they're gonna bog me down with, ridiculousness of stuff that I don't care, like a ceiling fan, then I might go, I'm gonna walk around the house if that's okay with you. I really wanna look at it through a buyer's eyes and, not have any conversation about what, you've done to the house or anything like that. I just wanna look at it strictly from a buyer's point of view. So that's always an option if you feel that that would be more helpful for you to take in the house. If not, if they're gonna walk you around the house, as I go around, I do little things like, I ask them, can I open this closet door? And I do things like that because I'm trying to show them that I actually care. Like I'm actually going, like I care if this is a walk-in closet, or I care that this is that, or whatever. And then as I'm walking around, I'll point things out, and if like I see an update, I'll say, did you all do this update? And then I'll also tell them, please let me know if there's anything you want to point out that you've done. Like any updates or anything that maybe I can't see or whatnot. So then we walk around the house, we do all that. The other thing that I started doing was taking pictures. I would take pictures of certain things like the kitchen and the bathrooms. And I would tell them, I would say, I take these pictures so that I can look back and see, what it is that, what we're selling. Because we'll get into this in a minute, but typically my market analysis is not going to be probably as solid as it would be once I see it. And that's what I'll tell them. I'll say, I did a market analysis for you. However, it's very difficult to put a price on something you've never seen.
Yeah.
So all I've done was, come to you with the sales in the neighborhood, but I will more than likely have to go back and relook at the market analysis and probably make some adjustments. So I take some pictures so I can look back. I do that for two different reasons. One is truly for the market analysis, but two is if I do get the listing, it's very helpful to have pictures so that when you do put it in the MLS, or you're trying to remember, does it have a gas stove or things like that, you can look back and remember. Or if you don't remember the bathroom. But times have changed in that sense because now we have to have photos to put it in, with a certain amount of time. Whereas sometimes we would put listings in and we'd have one photo and it would be days before we would get the rest of the photos. And that was just normal because we didn't have that turnaround time with photography like we do now. So it's not as big a deal as it used to be for me, but anyways. So then we sit down on the table, and then that's where I get out my listing presentation. And I say the same thing about the listing presentation as I do about your purchase agreement and your listing agreement. You should be able to read it upside down, okay? You should be able to go through it upside down. Now, some people like a digital copy to go through, and they'll bring, say, their laptop or an iPad or something like that to go through the presentation. And that's fine too. I mean, times are changing. I still like to leave something, and I would say most experts would agree that you should leave a presentation there with them. Every time I go to like seminars and whatnot from like people that are, do a lot of sales, production, most of them I'll say they bring some sort of listing presentation. The other thing that you can do if you don't want to leave your presentation is a lot of people will they have a like leather bound book that they take there, but they don't leave it there. And they just use that for every listing. And you can do that too, whichever. I mean, but again, I like to leave something.
You read the whole binder, the whole.
I like a whole binder. I mean, think about it like this, you guys. If somebody comes to you and they're trying to sell something like a service or something like that, and they're just like talking with you, I mean, wouldn't you want to see the professionalism and the preparedness of that person instead of somebody just being like, hey, let me sell you insurance or whatever? You would want to see that they took the time to prepare something for you, right? And I feel when you don't have that and you walk in there and you have nothing in your hand, and then they're interviewing other people, and other people bring a listing presentation, right? That's not gonna make you look very good. So even if they don't even use it, or you don't, you know, whatever, at least you're making yourself look better to them. Because I guarantee you there will be other people that will not bring a listing presentation. So we sit down and I pull the listing presentation, and usually I try to sit across from them, and I tell them, I say, I'm gonna go through this listing presentation with you. I'm not gonna go through everything. There's a lot here. And I usually make a stupid joke about tonight when you can't sleep, you can read through this.
Yeah.
Say silly things. But I do touch on the important parts. So like, depending upon if they know me or not, right? If they don't know me, I'm gonna talk to them a little bit about myself, how I got started, how long I've been doing it. One thing that you can, if you ever get an objection about being newer, this is something that I've always told all newer brokers they can say. Use like somebody like me as an example and say, you know, I hear your objection that I'm newer, but funny story or something like this. My qualifying broker who's been in the business for over 25 years, she doesn't sell anymore, but you know, she made a comment to us that, you know, when you're newer, you're very, very hungry and you're gonna work very, very hard. And she would said to us, you know, at the end, she was really pretty burnt out on selling and she didn't work nearly as hard as she did in the beginning. And so I understand that objection, but I want you to know, one, I have a huge support behind me. I have a whole team. And two, I'm gonna work harder than anybody to sell your house, you know? And, you know, even though I'm, you know, new, you know, we go through an extensive training or say things like that, but throw me under the bus, right? Be like, you know, she said that that's one thing that she's noticed, you know, about newer brokers is how hard they work. And it's true. I mean, it's a totally true story, right? Because if Ethan and I are like both going to a listing presentation, I guarantee you I'm not gonna work as hard as he does. I'm so burnt out on selling, like I don't sell, but you know what I mean? Like at the end there, I was just like, well, I didn't want to do anything. You know, I was just like, I'm so tired of this. So it's a true story. I mean, I'm being like dead serious, true. So use me as your person to be like, this is what my QB said. And you can say, you know, my QB even said, you know, it's hard to compete with, you know, even this younger generation, you know, because they are hungry, they're, you know,
They know how to do all the.
they know how to do all the technology and all the,
That's where I get lost because it's like, all right.
exactly. So you can use that to your advantage. You can even say things like, you know, my QB told me, you know, about her mom. I mean, her mom's retired now, but at the end there, she couldn't do anything, you know, with technology. She was lost. And it was very frustrating for her. So anyways, so I just want to give you that if that objection comes up. And you can say like, I've gone through extensive training, you know, we have an extensive training class or I don't know, something like that. Half the listing presentations BS, honestly, you're just
You're selling yourself too.
you're just like, you know, and we all have to be chameleons, right? You walk into your house and you can figure out pretty quickly what you're working with, right? You're basically, you can tell by the way their house is. You also want to understand the personality type that you're working with. You know, I always ask them like, what do you do for a living? Because if they're an engineer, I know that they're going to want to talk numbers and stats and all that crap.
They'll read everything.
They're going to read everything and they're going to ask questions and whatnot. I always worked very, very well with engineers. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because I can be very, very thorough, but I can also be maybe take that stress and pressure off of them with just my personality kind of, because they knew that I was doing a good job, but I was not like super uptight like they are. So by the end, I would usually be friends with these people, and they would call me, you know, a lot of engineers from Sandia I worked with. But anyway, so I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna go through the book, and like I said, I'm either going to talk about myself or not talk about myself. It depends upon the relationship, but I'm not gonna go too into detail about myself. I mean, I might, like a lot of people, I've seen realtors where they go in and I'm not even joking, I know a realtor that his listing presentation, he has like a one-liner of every sale he's ever made. Because he's trying to show his experience, right? Don't do that. In my opinion, don't do that. If people think it works, that's fine. I personally am just gonna say, I'm very confident that, I either whatever my experience or whatever the situation is, that I'm gonna get your house sold and blah, 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 right? Who can BS in that? You guys BS? Right? So that's what you have to do, okay? So let's, well, we'll do some scripting at the end. Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about myself. I have a section there that has testimonies, and I always put testimonies in there. Now, for somebody who doesn't have any sales, you're probably gonna wanna take that page out, but you could put stuff in there from, like you're at a team, right? You could put like a K2 testimony or something like that on there. Otherwise, you can just take it out. Though that is something that I usually point out is I tell them, I have put in here these testimonies, and if you feel that you want to call these references, you are more than welcome to. And that's why I put them in there, because I'm very confident in my service, and I will give you, their contact information if that's something, because some people do want references, right? I'm not a big reference person, but I've had people that are like, I want references, and I'm like, okay, I want to talk to people that have sold their house before. I'm like, okay, which is fine, right? But that's why I put those testimonies in there, and I make sure, obviously, that those people that are in there would mind if I gave that information to the person to call them. Okay, so when we go, so what I provided here for you guys is a list of what should go into, or I'm sorry, a list of everything you want to cover in your listing presentation. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean in your book, it just means this is what your entire listing presentation is going to consist of, okay? In my listing presentation, after I talk briefly about myself, I'm going to go into marketing. That's the next section. And the thing about marketing these days is that it's changed so much in the sense that everything's online, right? So one of the things that I always, the way that I present it to them is I'm very honest, and I say, I'd like to sit here and say that, I'm gonna, I have more access to all the, internet platforms, more than everybody else does, or things like that. But that's not the case, right? Because let's just be honest, we're all living in internet, and this is a conversation I'm having with Sally. Let's be honest, we're all living in the times of internet, and all this stuff is auto-populated. So your listing is going to be online, no matter what. But my job is to, and then I tell them a stupid story. This is really dumb. You don't have to use it, but I would say, when you go to the store and you buy yogurt, some of you might have heard me say this. You buy yogurt, and there's like the Yoplait that's like 79 cents, and then there's like the fancy, like in the glass jar, or it's got like sprinkles or whatever, and you end up paying $3 more because it looks better, but really yogurt is kind of yogurt, right? My job is to make your house look like the fancy yogurt, and people are going to pay more for it. So what does that mean? It means I'm going to make sure your house is staged properly. I'm going to make sure your pictures are professional. I'm going to provide as much photography and virtual tour and all these different things. I'm going to make sure that, it's basically just perfectly wrapped up in a bow. If there's things that I feel that need to be done to the house to get you more money, I'm going to let you know that. So that's my job, is to make your house look the best to everybody, because the first showing that you get is online, right? So I have to make sure online that they see it and they go, I'm going to pay I'm gonna pay the extra for that house because it's amazing, or I wanna go see that house. Did you have a question?
Yeah, this might be digressing from this, so I want to interrupt that, but maybe you could do, for me, or for everybody, my idea is to do, if you could do a class, because I don't know, really, I'm actually not, but, like, when you're doing the presentation, you're kind of basically telling what you're gonna do, like the same. But I wonder if you just do like the order of operations.
Order of
Yeah, like,
operations?
so like would be like, you get pictures, then you do the MLS.
Oh, the
then you
listing.
design, then you paint,
From,
and then
from
you put on showing time.
contract to close, yeah. We can do that for sure. And we do, wait, maybe I don't have it. No, I do. In Simply Bag Agent, there should be a pre-listing checklist, that does go through all that. It talks, it says like all the things you need to do prior
You do
to
it in like one day,
the listing. What?
you do it like in one day,
No,
or we,
it's, I mean, we'll do it, well, I'll definitely do a class because that's a good idea, but it's basically depending upon their time frame. So like, if they're like, I want the house on the market yesterday, well, you better haul booty and get those pictures scheduled and all the different things, right? You put the floor plan on, work as quickly as possible. Then there's some people that are like, I'm not ready yet, so it's gonna be like a month. So over that month, you're just gonna make sure and get everything done. So it's kind of gonna be more about their time frame. So that's kind of the example that I give them to express to them what my job is, because everybody's gonna go into a listing presentation trying to say that they're going to do more than everybody else, right? But it's very difficult to list all the extra things that you're gonna do when really everybody's pretty much doing the same stuff, right? The only extra stuff that I think you can touch on is you can say, we do target marketing through our software platform. So we're going to market to people who, and this, obviously, this is if you do it. But in KV4, right, you can target market who it thinks is the people that, like, I'm talking about like Facebook and social media and stuff, right?
Plus. Pineapples.
Like half, that was like a half state. But so if there's anything out there extra that you can do, even if you don't believe that it works, tell them you do it. But be cautious not, to not say things that automatically occur, right? Like the distribution of the listing, that's gonna go to everybody, right? So, in my listing presentation, there's a page in there that says, it's gonna go to all these websites. Well, it's all gonna go to all these websites. So my advice to you is this: be honest about what you're going to provide and talk more about your value proposition, as opposed to, I'm gonna put it on the internet, I'm gonna do, because that's not gonna really work. Now, if you get like, say, maybe some older people that maybe don't understand technology, then maybe you're gonna wanna touch on that a little bit more. But one of the questions that you're gonna ask them, if it is like somebody you've never met and they call you to come to a listing presentation, and one of the questions is going to be, have you sold a home before, right? You wanna know that, because you wanna know when you walk in there, is this something they've never experienced before? So you might be expressing the process a little bit more. So that's why that sheet of questions is so important, because you know what you're walking into and what you're, because some people, like, I'm the type of person where, granted, I'm in real estate, but for the most part, when I hire a professional, I want them to tell me that they're gonna take care of everything, and, and I'm gonna go like, cool, I don't even wanna read all that. Like, I'm gonna probably go more off of how I feel about that person, rather than the presentation that they're gonna put in front of me. That's just because I chime out with stuff like that. If you go through a whole thing, I'm gonna be like, cool, whatever, you know what I mean? Just tell me you're gonna sell my house. So you need to know that personality prior to walking in there. Because again, if you come in and try to do that to me, I'm probably gonna shut you down, and you're probably gonna think that I didn't like you, but I'm the person that's like, I don't need all that. I just need to know that you know what you're doing, and that you're got the experience or the backing or whatever. So it's hard to, go through a listing presentation, because it's gonna be different with every person that you meet with, right? Every person you're gonna tweak it, you're gonna be a chameleon, you're gonna turn into whatever that person is. And I'm just gonna tell you this, and I don't know who's maybe Sonia, I think she's on here. Be really cautious as a woman, like how you dress, because if it's like a husband and a wife, you wanna look like, this sounds stupid, but you don't wanna look like too.
Too flashy.
Right, exactly. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. I mean, when you're an attractive woman with, you know, a good body and stuff, and you walk in there and the wife is not, you know, I mean, it's important.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
And I usually talk to the woman more than the man, to be honest with you. Or if the man is in the driver's seat, I just still make sure that I'm including her in the conversation.
Flatter them, but don't be too many.
Right, exactly. And it's important to know that, you know, I kind of, my mom being in the business, she kind of taught me that from the get-go. You know, she was like, you know, because you guys know how I dress, very professional and whatnot, but you know, sometimes I would wear stuff and she'd be like, I wouldn't wear that. You know what I mean? Like that's a little flashy or, you know, so just take that for what it is. Okay, so it's hard to say, again, what you're going to say in the listing presentation because it's going to vary for every person. But what I do recommend you doing is going through my listing presentation and looking at all the pieces that I put in there and then taking that and creating your value proposition. My value proposition, again, was I'm going to make your house the Yoder that sells for more, right? That's my job, is to present your home the best I can to get the most amount of money I can. That's my value proposition. And then they might say, well, what are you gonna do? And then that's when I'm gonna list like all the different things that I'm gonna do to make sure that that's the case, right? But again, I'm not going through this entire listing presentation. I'm having a conversation with them. And remember, when you're having these conversations, ask questions. Keep them engaged with you. You know, you can say something, you say things like, when you start to go to the marketing, or when you talk about yourself, say, I'm gonna move on, but do you have any questions about me? You know, is there any, you know, anything you wanna ask me or anything you wanna know about me, and always put some personal stuff in there too. You know, if you had a previous job that you did, or if you have kids or grandkids, you know, you can say things like, well, you know, the most important people to me are my kids. You know, I used to say I was married, but I don't anymore. I don't want to say I've been divorced twice, that would look really bad. I'm looking for a new husband. But I do talk a little bit personally about my life so that they can see that I'm human and I've got a life, and you know, I'm not just like some hobo that walked in their house. But then when you go into the marketing, do the same thing. You know, after you've had a conversation about what you're going to provide for them. So one of the things that is on this sheet is number 5, your unique selling proposition. While identifying your unique selling proposition can be difficult at first, once you have it, marketing materials and strategies are much easier to execute, and you're likely to attack. You're likely to attack more clients. Sorry, I don't know why I thought that was so funny. Who are a great fit, but it's true. And so in the beginning, that's going to be a little bit more difficult for you. So kind of maybe go off of what I just said or something like that, but create it around your personality, because again, you have to show them that there's a value there, right? So then you're going to go into pricing, and pricing is the most difficult part, okay? Because again, like I said, you don't know what you're walking into. That's why it is so important to ask those questions. Very rarely did I have somebody that would say, I don't know, or that's what you're for, or things like that. So when I go into the pricing, and if you look at the listing presentation, it talks about pricing myths and things like that. But if I have already had that conversation with them and their price is right on with my price, I'm not going to have much of a conversation, right? If their price is way over my price, then I'm going to have a conversation with them. And those are the things that in the listing presentation that you may or may not touch on because of where they're at. Now, if you didn't have that conversation with them prior to listing appointment, ask them right then and there. You know, say, you know, and one of the questions is always going to be, you know, do you have a mortgage? What do you owe on it, right? Because then again, you know if they have a mortgage that's, more than what their house is worth, you're gonna have that conversation. But these aren't the conversations that you're gonna have at that moment. I mean, those are conversations once they hire you, but you are gonna have the conversation of, what do you owe? What do you think your house is worth? If they say, I don't know, say, have you seen any of the sales in the neighborhood? Have you had any friends who sold their houses, or have you paid attention to any of the sales? And they may say yes, or they may say no. Again, these questions are prompting you to the next part of your listing presentation, because then you know what you need to talk about. So if they say to me, well, John Smith sold their house for $425,000. Okay, well, I better have that data there to look at that, right? So the data that I bring, so in my listing presentation, I am going to put some sort of a market analysis in there. But unless I am I know for a fact, if that's a newer Pulte home in a certain area, I may know exactly what that house is gonna look like, because they're all basically the same, right? So I can hone in a little bit more on what I think that price is. But a lot of times when they're older homes and I don't really know what they look like, I'm just gonna bring an average. I'm gonna say, this is the price range for this neighborhood. I couldn't give you a recommended price until I saw your home. So, this will take time for you to be able to do this, but I can usually go in with the information that I have and give them kind of an idea of a price once I see the house, right? When you're newer, that's a little bit more difficult. So you might need to say something along the lines of, I'm giving you a range here. We can have a conversation, but I am really going to need to sit down and reevaluate everything and come up with a figure. So if it's okay with you, we have a range here. Can I call you, later on today, or, first thing in the morning or whatnot, and kind of give you a recommended price? But again, I'm going to be asking questions, trying to figure out where their head is at, because that's going to help me do my job. Because again, I'm not going to have this whole conversation if we're pretty much right in the same place, if they think it's worth the same amount. So what I'm bringing to them is just basically the history, okay? I'm not necessarily bringing to them, now, something that you can do is when you do your market analysis and it comes up, like if you use RPR and it does come up with a figure for you, and let's say that figure is way off, you could say, look, this is just, basically looking at this is basically like Zillow, right? It's just looking at the overall. It's not taking into consideration anything unique about your home. And sometimes that can help, because if it is way lower than what they think it's worth, you're kind of already setting them up a little bit, but you're blaming it on, the platform, the technology, right? So then you say, so now that I've seen your home, I need to really sit down and look at this and take adjustments. And so this is just, really an overall of your area and not taking into consideration blah, blah. So it's not a bad thing to bring a price, right? But it can also backfire if it's too high, if your price is too high, right? Because what if you get there and you're like, oh crap, this house is dumb. Like I can't even fix this, without, $25,000. So you gotta be really, really cautious with those conversations. And that's why that initial conversation on the phone is so, so important, right? You're finding out the age of everything, all that kind of stuff. So with the price part, that's the most important part to them. And I usually tell them in the beginning when I start talking about price, I say, look, I realize this is the most important part to you, because what are you going to get for your home? And this is the part that, we have to understand that the market's going to dictate. And an example that you can always use if they're wanting to price it too high is, if I own, Apple stock and I call my stockbroker and say, I want to sell my stock for this amount, but, on the market it's selling for this amount. I can't just say, well, I don't care, I want this, I want $100 a share, even though everything else is selling for 50, right? Because people are going to just buy the $50 share, right? So that's always an example that things like that are the examples that I would use. If you go to the store and, eggs are $8, I can't go up to the register and go, well, I don't want to pay $8, right? So you can use examples like that. And always say, I don't dictate what the market will pay. So if you are having that conversation about the price and they think it's worth a lot more, this is something I always would say. At the end of the day, the price that you want to list your home is up to you. My job is to be honest and truthful to you on what the market is doing right now. Now, could your house possibly sell for more than what the market says? Absolutely. I can't determine that. So, you know, if you decide you do want to list your house higher, I'm going to tell you, you know, the pros and the cons of doing that. And again, you still get to make that decision. And so that way, I'm not going in there, and people have different ways of viewing this. I don't know like how Christina does it now, but she was always of the mind, she would go in there and tell them this is the price. Like this is what you need to list that up, and if you go higher, it's not gonna sell, which is fine, right? It works great for her. That's not how I do it, because I feel like I can paint myself in a corner, right? I can tell them something and then they go, I don't wanna work with that person because I know my house is worth more. Right? Here's the thing, in a seller's market like this, we don't know. You could just get some, you know, desperate buyer that is like, I need a house now. My family's about to move here. And, you know, I don't care, right? I'm paying cash, I don't care, I need a house. So you want to be cautious not to say like, it'll never sell for that, right? I mean, now, if it's some insane number, obviously, that's not gonna work, but, go ahead.
I should know this, but so what if you list and then the buyers get an appraisal?
Oh,
Usually
thank you for bringing that up. I meant to touch on that. So that's the other conversation that you need to have with them is, you know, there are times when I will go in and I will say, I think your house will sell more than what the other houses are selling for. But here's the risk, right? The appraisal. But here's my thinking. This is just a side note. And this is, I actually have this conversation with them. I always say, look, and this is only if I feel this way, if I feel it could sell for more. I'll say, I do think that it'll sell for more. And a lot of, you know, you will hear differing opinions of, you know, it won't appraise, right? But I would rather attempt to sell it for more, hey, and hopefully we can work through the appraisal issue, than sell it for less and it appraise and then we never even had a chance, because there are ways that we can, you know, do an appraisal gap if somebody's paying cash, you know, there's different things. But I make sure and set up the conversation as to worst case scenario, you're gonna, you know, sell it for, you're either gonna put it back on the market or you're gonna sell it for what the appraised value is, right? And but I leave that up to them as to how they wanna proceed. But you've got to make sure that you're confident about the price that you're giving them. If they're coming up with a price and you know it's overpriced, right, then you're not gonna say that, because then you're giving them, I mean, it can still happen, right, but you don't wanna say that, put yourself, make you not look like the expert if it doesn't sell. Okay, so that is a conversation that you're gonna have with them, and it is so common these days, right? I mean, it's just crazy.
they always agree.
Well, no, so if it's cash, they may or may not. If it's a loan, I would say 90% of the time they're gonna have to get an appraisal. There are times when, if they have like, you know, huge down payment, amazing credit, you know, certain homes actually don't even, like, they'll put it in the system and it'll say,
Crazy too.
it doesn't need an appraisal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that does happen, but it's not that often, right? I mean, I would say, you know, if I sold 20 homes, maybe one might have an appraisal that gets waived, maybe. Okay. Okay, so then I move on to staging. And I don't really go into the staging section very much. I pretty much I tell them, you know, I put this in here for you to review. I might say to them, you know, your house is beautiful. I actually don't think that you need any staging at all. Or I might say, you know, if you hire me, then I'll come in and we'll go through all of this, right? And so I'm not gonna sit there and give them
All the tips.
all the tips and everything. Now, there's a lot, it's all in my listing presentation, but again, I'm just trying to provide them some value from the get-go. okay? There will be times when they will ask you questions and they will try to get you to assist them in staging their home, even though they haven't hired you yet. Be very cautious about that. You know, I'll just say something like, you know, I appreciate all those questions. Rest assured, you know, when or if you hire me, we're gonna go through all of that stuff. I'm gonna be here. We might even hire, you know, a staging company to either, well, it depends on the situation, but to, you know, come in and just help us stage it, or maybe bring in furniture. But one of the pictures, if their house is really bad, one of the pictures in my listing presentation, which is truly one of my pictures, one of my listings, it's a before and an after, and the difference on just the photos and the staging, it had been on the market for months and months and months. We sold it first weekend, just by doing the things to it that needed to be done. And that's a great picture to use, because it's a true, like, listing that I had. Then I'm gonna go to them and I'm gonna say, okay, now you'll see the last section. And what this section is basically all about you and listing your home. And I say, and the reason I put this in here is because I tell them two reasons. One is, again, I want you to see my professionalism, my preparedness, you know, how I do business. So, you know, I want this to be here for you. And then the second reason is, if you decide to sell with me, you already have everything here so we can get started, right? So then if you did go through the listing presentation, you'll see in the back, it has, you know, all the different things. I always tell them, you know, I want to know what you think are the top best things about your house, because what I see and what you see are different. You know, I'm just trying to make them think that I'm like really interested in all this. But, and then I have a, you know, page, these are all the things we need to do to get it ready, you know. And then I say to them, these are the things we're going, you know, you would ask me about staging, these are the things we're gonna do after you sell with me. And then I just included this for you guys, because a lot of people, when we have other classes and we have like a, let's say a survey class or a title insurance class, right? You've heard people say those are things that you wanna ask for when you're listing a house. So this is in the listing presentation, but I just wanted to give it to you because this gives you an idea of the different things that are important that you get from them in listing their home. So you can just kind of keep this on hand so that you know, or you don't miss, you know, that you need the survey, you need the title insurance, you need all these different things, okay? So that was, I just kind of put that in there to be helpful. And then I tell them, and then in the back, I've got the listing agreement and the adverse material facts. And if you saw in there, it has like tips on filling out the adverse material facts that I actually just recently did, which I'm gonna put on Simply Back Agent. And then I tell them, so if you call me and you say, hey, I want a list, then I'll say, cool, all the documentation's there. Hopefully you've already reviewed it. Let's make an appointment, I'll come over and we'll finalize everything, right? Sometimes they're like, I'll just sign it and scan it back to you, I don't care, right? So again, it's just taking one more step out of having to go back. Honestly, one of the biggest reasons I do it is hopefully they've gone through it and then I don't have to go through it like line by line, you know? But also I want to, like the adverse material facts, I don't want to have to come, I don't have to bring that to them and then come back and bring it again or pick it up. You know, it's like you have it, fill that out, then when we meet, I can get it from you. You know. So then I just say, you know, do you have any questions about anything we talked about? And usually we chat more and whatnot, you know, sometimes they have questions, sometimes they don't. And then I just get out of there. You shouldn't be there longer than an hour. Okay. There will be times when you meet somebody and you guys just like hit it off and you're just talking, but you're really having a good time. That's happened to me before. But I mean, really, if it's just a listing presentation, Michelle. But there are times, but I mean, for the most part, you want to get in and out of there in an hour. You don't want to be sitting there wasting their time. Like for me, I would literally lose my mind if you sat there and talked for an hour. I'd be like, you know, yeah, I'd be like, and I probably would be the person that would say, look, you know, I'm pretty, you know, I've sold a lot of houses. I'm pretty well versed. I am interviewing people because I don't know a realtor, but really my question, here's what I want to know from you. And then the rest I don't care about. I'll say that, like, seriously, I'm very blunt and I don't like to waste my time.
Can I sit in for the last 2 minutes?
But
So-
that again is the reason why you ask those initial questions. You're trying to get an idea of their personality. And then as you're having the conversation throughout the listing presentation, right? You're asking them questions. What's most important to you? What is most important to you as a what you're looking for in a realtor? I mean, the obvious is you want them to sell your home, but you know, what are other things that, so like, if somebody asked me that question, I would say, you know, honestly, I want somebody who I can trust is doing the job and I don't have to sit there and be on top of them and be asking them questions, and because I'm just not that person. Or I might be the type of person that would say, you know, I want somebody who's gonna be patient and understand that I wanna be in the loop throughout this whole thing. And I'm going to be calling you and I'm going to be doing this and that. So I'm the type of person that would probably say those types of things, but you can ask those questions, right? You can say, you know, are you the kind of person, you know, do you want, and that's one of the things that's in the listing presentation is, are you one of those types of people that really like to know everything that's going on? You know, do you like phone calls, you know, a few times a week? I mean, hopefully we wouldn't have the house on the market that long. Or do you like to be more hands-on? You know, asking questions like that, and then it helps you to move forward. If they do hire you, you know what you're dealing with. Again, my personality is don't bug me, sell my house, don't bug me, right? If I have a question, I'll call you. Now, how helpful do you think that's gonna be to know that? Because again, I'm gonna get super annoyed if you keep calling.
Yeah.
And, you know, but then I might get super annoyed if I'm the type of person that's very methodical and detail oriented and I wanna know everything, right? So you really need to know those, you really need to ask those questions. But one of the best tips that I ever got from my mentor was, and it's kind of what I was just getting at, is think about how you want somebody to treat you when they come in, and how, what would make you want to hire that person. And every personality is gonna be different. And you have to be really good at figuring out people's personalities to figure out what's important to them. But take the anxiety and the expertise and all that out of it. Just think about how you would want to be talked to. What would be important things that would make you feel special or would make you feel like they can sell your home? And like if you're presenting to your friend, right? Like take all the stuff out and just talk to them as human beings. Don't be afraid to be candid. Don't be afraid to ask honest questions. They are going to appreciate that so much more than if you go in there and put on a show, right? Even though you are putting on a show, like, you're pretending like you're not, right? And they're gonna appreciate that. They just want somebody who's going to make sure that your house is getting sold, you know, for top dollar and it's being presented and all that good stuff. So that was the biggest piece of advice I got in my listing presentations, and I think that's why I became so good at them, was because I just went in there just being me.
If it's not a good fit, it's not gonna be a good experience for
And you're
anybody
100%
across the
right.
board.
It's not, and I always, you know, tell people if I feel like something's not gonna be a good fit, or I might say to them, you know, I don't want you to, if I pretend that I can do something that I can't do, you're gonna get angry at me, and you're not gonna be happy. And then I'm not gonna be happy because you're not happy. And so I don't want to, you know, try to sell you on things that aren't gonna happen, or I can't do, or promise you things, or, you know, oversell, or all. This is stuff I say when people come to talk to me at the brokerage. I think we had that conversation kind of, you know, I'm not gonna oversell somebody. I don't want them to come to Simply if they think that they're gonna be getting things that they're not, you know. I'd rather them go find like their home somewhere else. And it's the same thing with listings, in my opinion. I don't want them to get mad at me, because then it's a horrible transaction. So you wanna go in there and just be you. You wanna go in there and just be honest and just say, like, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do.
Listings are hard. You can't sell them, like I'm having right now.
You have one you can't sell? Really? I'm hearing about that more and more.
Yeah, one we took off the market for a while.
Is it condition or price, or?
It's definitely price. The other one I
Ask him, not a clue. He's done like 10 open houses for me. Not a clue. And we dropped the price again and never got one showing.
Where's that?
Kimmick and Paseo, beautiful lot, great house. It
Kimmick
has two
and Paseo?
bathrooms,
Where?
Kimmick and Paseo.
How much is it?
We just dropped to 474,
Right as you're going out the sale, like. the
right
house
before,
is-
Oh, West Side.
Right before.
West Side,
Okay, sorry. He's a Kim guy. I
sorry.
don't sell anymore, so.
You're like, where?
Oh, that's a street
It's
I've
right-
never heard
So
of.
there's a beautiful, custom home neighborhood right across the street, they're right there.
I know where, I know
It's-
now.
It's great.
It's so funny.
But we got- No, I forget what it is, I have to look. But it's been on the market for like 100 days or more.
That is also though, something you might wanna cover in your listing presentation, sorry, is if your house is not selling, you are going to get the phone call from me as to what my opinion is as to why it's not selling. And if I call you and I say, we didn't hit the mark, we overpriced it. It's not because I'm trying to sell this, and make it easy on myself. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not it. My job is to be honest with you. It is your, prerogative, if you want to lower the price, but I'm not going to not hurt your feelings then this is the honesty. This is really how I talk to people. I'm not gonna not tell you because that's not, you hire me to be honest with you. You hire me to tell you what I think and what's gonna sell your home. And again, ultimately it's your decision. But if you get that phone call, just know, and that's another thing though, you guys, when I list houses, and that's in the listing presentation, is I give them weekly updates. And so I'll always say to them in a seller's market, we may not even need this, but I'll say to them, if we're not getting offers on your home in the first week, then I know that we probably have a price problem, but I give them weekly updates and I ask them, I say, how do you want your weekly updates? Do you want me to call you, want me to email you? And then I do those on Monday morning. That's the first thing I do on Monday mornings. Go in and do the update and send it off to them. And the reason I want to do that is because if I get to that point where I'm like, we have to lower the price if you want to sell this house, I'm already preparing them for that.
So what's the update look like?
So I'm trying, I think I had a sheet, if I'm not mistaken, but basically, yeah, I did. It's new listings in the area, pendings in the area, closings in the area, how many showings we've had. I think that's it.
The only idea with this house is we probably priced it too high, but we did the comps. Like we spent an hour plus looking at comps because they're friends of mine and we spent forever. And same thing, I tell them like, if we don't get offers or showings in the first week, we're probably too high. And we've dropped it from 524 to 474. But I think we just have 2 bathrooms. I don't know if it's a 4-bedroom, 2 bath. And then I feel guilty because maybe I should have paid more attention to that, like it's my fault. Because there's a lot of guilt when you don't sell a house.
Oh, that's.
And then I
worst.
took the other listing and they wanted to list high, and we listed high, and I gave them the same spiel, but then they wouldn't lower. And then, you sit there forever, and then, the wife gets mad at me because, I tell them too high, and.
Well,
And I think in the future, I just won't, if I think they're they're like $100,000 off. I just won't.
yeah,
Take
and
the
that's
listing.
what we were talking about earlier is, if it's just an insane number, then you just tell them, I'm not gonna be able to sell it for that. And you're just gonna get angry at me because I can't. And so we're probably just not the right fit. But if at any time you feel, that you're closer to, what I'm suggesting, give me a call. I'd love to sell your home.
We have to just not get greedy. Because you're so excited to get that listing, right?
Well,
But
and that's
you can't
what a
sell
lot
it,
of
you can't
people
take
do.
it. Yeah.
Although I did strategically when I was in the business, like I've probably been doing it about 5 years, I would strategically take any listing in North Albuquerque Acres just because I wanted my name out there. I just wanted my name on signs. And it actually worked really well because everybody was like, man, you're like taking over North Albuquerque Acres, even if I couldn't sell the house, right? But I didn't care. So in that situation, it was strategic. I wanted all those listings. I didn't care. Because everybody driving by, they're not paying attention.
see your name.
Yeah, they see my name.
Well, now they're seeing my name on a house that's been sitting forever, which is awesome.
Well, they don't know if it's pending, they don't know.
I
They don't know if
know.
the market's shifting.
Yeah, I
you know,
mean,
they don't know if it's-
I definitely think it's different because you're not like trying to get that whole market, but I think there's times when you do strategically, or, you know, you write in your listing agreement that the price, that they'll lower the price, whatever amount by such and such a date, you know, or something like that. Yeah, or yeah, try to. All right, bye, guys.